One of the best things about a small class like this is it's small and you can get personalized attention. One of the worst things about a small class like this is people don't ask questions. Guys, I'm telling you right now, I just had that. I have this feeling already. If I hadn't have talked, because Jimmy said yesterday, can you explain us about a table view? Do you know how long that table view would have taken us? Even one thing explaining, at least 4 of you had trouble with the table view itself. Okay? So with that, are there any questions whatsoever about what we did last? Anything about that URL string, about the functions, about anything? Question?
Is there a reason we put the underscore?
Yes. If you go back to the idea of the most foundational idea of a function, when I do the header of a function, and I'll call it my name, if I say city and string right here in the definition, when I call, what I need is say my name, and it's going to give me what we, for lack of a better term, a prompt. It's going to say city : it's going to match that, and then I'm going to put in like Chicago in the call. If I put the underscore before the city, it changes the call to be my name and then just sending Chicago, the string. So it's a nice little feature of Swift 3 and now Swift 4 of if you don't want to prompt with you put the underscore. If you do want to prompt, you don't put the underscore or the two things. Now in a call that we as the programmers are making here, there's no reason for that city because I'm just a programmer. I know it's my code. I don't need that prompt. Okay? I could have just as easily gotten rid of the underscore here. Would you do so? Get rid of that underscore. Okay. Now it's going to pop back up here, and it's going to want in this right here. Can you get rid of? There we go. Delete the parentheses. Delete all the parentheses for me. Yep. Keep going. Nope. Get rid of city as well. Go right there. Put the parenthesis back in. Notice it nope. Go back. Delete. Put the parenthesis in. Notice it recognized what I want, hit return, and you see it puts that prompt in there. Now you can type in city. Okay. So it's one of the features of the language in the ID. Anything else that you guys want to talk about? Yeah.
In the original URL in like London, UK, is there anything you can replace UK with like countries?
Simplicity is the pure idea of it. No. If you go back and read that documentation on Open Web, there's all kinds of different ways to be able to make the call. You can actually call it through like a zip code. You can call it through a country code. I wanted to keep it simple with just a city, and you're going to run into like, hey, I want Moscow. Or if I type in Paris, I'm probably going to get Paris, France, and not Paris, Illinois. Okay? So if I really wanted like flexibility, then I'm going to have to add more text fields. So for purely demonstration purposes of this app, I'm going simple here for you guys. When you guys make your app starting on Thursday, okay, you're going to want to make it a little bit more robust than what I'm doing. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. It's not worth running right now because not much is going to happen until we do a couple more things. This next one we're going to run before we have you guys code it. Okay, we're good? Yeah. What's that? Great question. The reason is because DiviBike is going to have all of those different ones, and if I didn't use the table view, I would have reminded you guys of the table view. Like DiviBike is going to get a little more difficult because DiviBike's going to have like 30 different locations in that station bean list. And so what I'm going to have you guys do as the MVP is that station bean list comes up as a list of all the locations. Okay. Then one of the stretches is I tap on a location and I'm going to see what available bikes there are. So it's the whole purpose of it was for demonstration purposes. Great question. See, those are the kind of questions I love. They happen more in a larger class. People tend to, because you get more people and more ideas, and they tend to ask more questions. With a small class, you have to almost force yourself to ask some questions here. Why are you doing that, Mr. Brown? So let's talk about it. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Good. Those are the kind of recap questions and current questions that I want to make sure you guys are asking. Okay, go all the way up to line 15 for me. And what we're going to do, hit return. And we're going to create two arrays. So the first one is going to be let labels equal. And what we're going to do is a bracket, squared bracket for an array. Good. Inside the array, I want you to type the string latitude, and then a comma after that. String longitude, comma after that. The string weather description. Yeah. No, you can just do weather space description. These are just going to be the labels in our table view, and then a comma, and then a string temperature, and then another string pressure, and then another string humidity, and then another string wind speed. Okay, hit return. And then do a var data equals, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blank strings. So it's going to be an array of blank strings. So quote, quote, comma, quote, quote, comma. So the idea here, guys, is I'm going to be creating just a whole bunch of blank strings to be able to place the data into. Now, if I was doing this in JSON data with DiviBike, I'd probably create a class. Do you guys understand what I mean? That's probably what I would recommend in the DiviBike when you guys do it later on this week, when you guys do the assignment based upon your own creation. Okay? But for simplicity's sake, again, I'm just making it through an array of labels. Okay? So while we're talking about the labels, let's come down here. Rather than having the number of rows in section return 1, let's have it return back labels.count. Okay. And rather than saying hello every single time, let's go to labels, bracket, and square bracket, and then index path.row. Nice. And then do, outside the bracket, do a space and then a plus. And then do a quote, colon, quote. And then do a plus. And do data, bracket, index path.row. So now it's going to do a label and then a colon and then the data that's stored inside of there. So if I ran this right now, we would just have the labels with blank data. But we're going to have the JSON fill that data. Does that make sense? Okay, 2 last things, and then you guys are going to work for a little bit. Go back up to line 34 and hit return twice for me. We need to make the call to the URL. And the way we call the URL is we start with a URL session object. So URL session. There you go, see it? Okay. Now, before we move on, I want to take a look at here the documentation. We haven't done that yet this year. Can you do a option click on URL session? So option click. Okay. So looking at the URL session? It's an object that coordinates a group of related network data transfer tasks. The URL session class is related to a class that's provided in the API for current downloading content. This API provides a rich set of delegate methods for supporting authentication and gives you app the ability to perform background downloads when your app is not running or in iOS while your app is suspended. URL session is a pretty robust class, for lack of a better term. There are tons of things that you do with it. Basically, anything that you have to make calls to internet, you are going to use a URL session. Do you guys remember in Programming 1 when we did things with like the Safari View Controller? The idea there was in the background, Safari View Controller called and created a URL session for you. But now we're not using Safari View Controller, we're creating the session ourselves. It's a much more difficult process because Safari View Controller made it so, hey, you want a browser? Just here we go, we'll take care of it all behind the scenes. Make sense? Okay, so URL session dot shared dot data task, okay, with the URL, actually, I don't put the parenthesis back because there was more than one in that one. I want a completion handler. Okay, so I want, interesting, keep going down. Why is it not giving me, should you be giving me a list of possible data tasks? Let's try that again. Can you delete back all the way to the dot for in front of the data task? So dot, get rid of the delete dot, then put the dot back in. There we go. That's what I was looking for. I want a data task with a URL, but I want a completion handler. I don't want just to send the URL. I want the ability when I come back to get the data back in a completion handler. So choose that one. That's why it wasn't making sense. So in that URL, we're going to send our URL, which is lowercase URL. Tab. Oh, no, not URL string. Now tab over. Perfect. Now, if you remember back from Programming 1, the easiest way to get a completion handler is to just hit return here. And notice it gives you all the completion handler automatically for you. Fills in all that code. So it wants a data optional. What probably is a good identifier for data? Let's do my data. Okay. What's a good one for you all response? Let's try response. What's a good one for error? Error. Sounds good. Now, we are going to have a little bit of a problem because our data up in the top is called data, which is a string array. This data is a data object. So I would probably change this to call it my data. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So last one is if space let space JSON object. You're creating it, so you can name it anything you want. There you go. Good. Space equals try. The word try, question mark. Space JSON serialization. There you go, perfect. Dot JSON object. You see it? Lowercase j, that's why. JSON object, and we want the one with data and options. All right. Now, actually, can you do a Command Z undo? Do JSON again. Do you see this word throws when you see the word throws, it's possible to throw an error. And so that's the reason why this word try is up in front. If it tries and it can't, it throws an error and you do what's called a catch. Okay? So anytime you see this throws, it's almost always going to ask you to put this try up in front. Okay, so go ahead and hit return. All right, so the data is my data. And the tab over to the serialization options, do .allow fragments. Should autocorrect here in a second. Yep, there we go. Then outside that, do an open squiggly brace and hit return. Okay. And let's try, oh, it's going to want, I know what it is. Can you come here to the end here and change it to space as, exclamation point, NS dictionary. NS dictionary. Okay. And so now in there, let's print out the JSON object. So print out JSON object. There you go, got it down. Okay, and I'm guessing it's probably going to want self.mydata. Go click on the red dot. Let's see what it says. Consecutive statements must be separated. There you go. Oh, no. Click on that red dot again. Oh, it needs to be unwrapped. Got it. And now let's run it. Okay, so find the errors. Click on close. Did we miss a squiggly brace somewhere? Down, go down. Open, close, open, close. Data response. Something strange here. It chose an autocorrect. It's different. JSON object, shared task, completion handler. Closing the JSON data, get JSON data right here. No, I could solve it that way, but for some reason the completion handler did a little bit differently than the way I wanted it. So URL session.share.datatask, open squiggly brace with URL, and then get rid of the closing parenthesis there for me. Get right up here. Get rid of that closing parenthesis. Put a comma. Completion handler. Type the word completion handler. T-I-O-N, handler, capital H, colon, not comma. All right, then we want squiggly brace, parenthesis, everything's good there. Okay, error in, go down to this line 39 there for me. Do a closing parenthesis, dot resume, open parenthesis, close parenthesis. Okay, let's see if that makes it go away. Expected expression. Try the serialization, JSON object, data, comma, options, allow fragments, parenthesis, things there. And so come to the end here of the print, hit return, and put a squiggly brace, closing squiggly brace. I think that we now got it. There we go. Now run it. Completion handler sometimes doesn't do the one that I was anticipating. So go ahead and run that. And hopefully, with all goes well, it'll go grab the data and it'll print it out for us. It's not putting it into the table yet because that's the final piece that we'll have to do. All right, let's go type in Chicago. Oh, I know there's one more thing. Chicago. Yep. It's going to say something and hit search. Okay, scroll up. And the error for me. Click going up. All the way up, all the way up. Okay. So there's one final thing to be able to get this to work. The app transport security has blocked a clear text HTTP resource load since it is insecure. You guys remember seeing that with the view controllers as well, the Safari view controller? Okay. You have to set the settings to be able to allow it to go out to the internet. Go up to the file folder up in the top left. Go down to info.plist. Go up to your information property list, hit the plus sign. You're going to do app transport security settings. Should come up after you do app space transport. Do capital A. APP so app transport capital T. There we go. Transport security settings, hit return. Open up the little arrow on the left. Click on the plus sign. Allow arbitrary loads, yep. And go over to the no and change it to yes, and then rerun. Double click. Nice, and then rerun. And now it should work. You type in Chicago, and we should be able to see the Chicago data. And there's all the Chicago data down in the print. There it is. Cool. Very first thing tomorrow, I'll have that up so that you guys can see it. You'll be given your time tomorrow.